If you're a Christian, how often have you had to argue or explain the reasoning behind your faith in Jesus Christ? What comes to mind when you're asked, or when you ask yourself, why Jesus? For many who are firm in their belief, it's their testimony that secures their faith. They were in a dark place spiritually or physically, and oftentimes they didn't believe in anything past the physical world. But an uncanny, sometimes miraculous series of events leads to them finding out about Jesus, and from that point onwards, their lives are forever changed. In evangelical spaces, it's often an expectation, whether spoken or unspoken, that the true believer must have some kind of life-changing spiritual experience. Even better, if it was a direct encounter with Jesus, like Paul on the road to Damascus. The ideal convert is then able to hear from God. Therefore, he knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that Christ is the one true God due to intuitions formed through direct divine communication. However, setting aside subjective experiential evidence, how does one argue for the existence of Jesus Christ? Not Jesus of Nazareth, the man of whom there is plenty of what modern historians consider evidence, but Jesus Christ, God made flesh, the great Redeemer. How many times have you actually had to argue for the existence of Jesus from first principles? Of the existence of God, there are several such well-known arguments. Take the ontological argument, which, very simply put, is the supposition that if we can conceive of a greatest possible being, then that being must exist in reality, because existing is greater than not existing. Or there's the intelligent design argument, which I brought up in a previous video. In terms of evidence for anything existing beyond the physical world, all of humanity's activities and belief systems throughout known history could be used in arguments for this, to the point where one wouldn't even know where to start. That's all well and good, but the question I'm trying to ask is, has human irrationality reached a point where we could argue from first principles that God certainly did incarnate as a human being, and by his death and resurrection saved humanity from the inevitable grasp of a spiritual death set in motion by an original fall from grace? Or do we not have deep enough knowledge nor the faculties of reasoning to adequately do this? I won't answer this directly in this video, I'll save that for another time. But if you sit with the question for a while, I'm sure it will lead you to some interesting places. What we will cover in this video is someone who did rationalize God's incarnation in a way that was simple to the point of being humorous, yet oddly compelling when you sit and think about it for a while. That person was Tertullian. You may have heard of him. He was an early Christian apologist living in the 2nd century AD and was key to the advancement of early church doctrine. The following is an excerpt from a lecture by Rudolf Steiner, an early 20th century Christian esotericist. All the relevant links to his work will be in the description.
Indeed, we can learn much from Tertullian's deepest beliefs, because he already sensed what was not revealed to people until long after his own death. Basically, Tertullian believed first that human beings at his time, that is in the late 2nd century CE, were so constituted as to be subject to the shame and disgrace of denying the greatest event in the history of the world, an event they could never come to on their own. Second, Tertullian believed that the human soul was too weak to understand this pivotal event. And third, he believed that if people follow only what their mortal body makes them capable of, they will find it impossible to establish a relationship to the mystery of Golgotha. These three things are at the core of what Tertullian believed, and on that basis he once said, quote, "The Son of God was crucified. I am not ashamed, because men must need be ashamed of it. And the Son of God died. It is by all means to be believed, because it is absurd." Close quote. The third important thing he said is, quote, "And he was buried and rose again. The fact is certain, because it is impossible." Close quote. We must believe it precisely because it is impossible. As you can imagine, these three statements of Tertullian appear particularly appalling to people in our modern and clever times. You can imagine the reaction of your typical dyed-in-the-wool educated materialist to the notion that Christ was crucified, and we must believe it because it is humiliating and shameful. Christ died, and we must believe it because it is absurd. Christ was truly raised from the dead, and we must believe it because it is impossible. Well, you can easily see what people with a monist worldview would have to say to that.
Thanks for watching if you made it this far. I won't add anything more, but will instead leave you to wrestle with what Tertullian's trying to say here. Maybe like myself, you'll catch yourself thinking, wait, this actually makes sense, but why exactly? And from there, you could be led down several interesting trails of thought or research. As always, we'll finish with the Bible. This time it's the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 11, verses 25 to 30. At that time, Jesus declared, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned, and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was well-pleasing in your sight. All things have been entrusted to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except for the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.